Emily Dawson and Jake Mitchell seemed like any ordinary couple, until one night shattered their lives forever. What followed was a horrifying 48-hour cover-up that would expose dark secrets, deadly choices, and a desperate attempt to hide the truth. This is their story. It was an ordinary Friday evening in the small, peaceful town of Maplewood, a place where everyone knew their neighbors and the loudest noise was often just the wind rustling through the trees. Emily Dawson, a 24-year-old woman known for her bright smile and warm personality, was getting ready for what she thought would be a normal night. She had plans to meet her boyfriend, Jake Mitchell, a local handyman with a quiet reputation. Their relationship had its ups and downs, but nothing that anyone in town found alarming. Emily was excited to see him, and no one expected that this night would mark the beginning of a dark and terrifying mystery. Emily left her apartment just as the sun began to dip below the horizon. She was wearing a simple outfit, nothing fancy, just enough to meet Jake for dinner. Friends said she looked happy, texting them before she left saying she couldn't wait to catch up, but after that the trail went cold. By Monday morning, Emily had not shown up for work. Her colleagues were puzzled, as she was usually punctual and reliable. They tried calling her, but there was no answer. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Concern grew quickly. It wasn't like Emily to disappear without any word. Days passed and still there was no sign of her. The police were called in to investigate her sudden disappearance. Officers visited her apartment searching for clues. They found no signs of struggle or forced entry. Emily's belongings were mostly untouched except for her purse, which was missing. Her phone lay on the kitchen counter, still connected to the Wi-Fi but without any recent activity. This only deepened the mystery. Surveillance cameras from nearby shops showed Emily walking to her car early Friday night. The footage caught her getting into Jake's vehicle, a dusty old pickup truck he often used for work. But beyond that moment, there was no more footage. The cameras did not capture anything after she entered the truck. It was as if she vanished into thin air. Detectives began to focus on Jake. They found him at his home, calm and composed, which many found strange given the circumstances. He said he had no idea where Emily was and insisted that he was just as worried as everyone else. However, his unusually steady demeanor raised suspicions. Friends and family described Jake as a reserved man but never cold or indifferent. Something about his reaction didn't add up. The police dug deeper into Jake's recent activities. His phone records showed multiple calls and deleted messages exchanged with Emily in the days leading up to her disappearance. Some messages hinted at arguments, but without clear context, the meaning remained elusive. There was no evidence of physical violence, but tensions seemed to be rising. As days turned into a full week, the community's anxiety grew. Flyers with Emily's face were plastered on telephone poles and storefronts. Local news stations picked up the story, broadcasting her image and urging anyone with information to come forward. The police worked around the clock, but leads were scarce. One unusual detail caught investigators' attention: Jake's behavior after Emily vanished. He stopped answering calls, avoided friends, and rarely left his house. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises coming from his home late at night. Doors slamming, muffled sounds, but when questioned, Jake dismissed them as normal household sounds. Still, police decided to get a search warrant for Jake's residence. Inside, everything seemed untouched on the surface. There were no visible signs of a struggle or forced entry, but beneath this calm exterior lay subtle clues that didn't match Jake's story. Certain areas of the house appeared to have been recently cleaned or rearranged. Investigators found a locked chest in the basement, something Jake had never mentioned. As they prepared to unlock it, a sinking feeling grew among the officers. The mystery of Emily's disappearance was no longer just a case of a missing woman. It was turning into something far more sinister. The peaceful facade of Maplewood was beginning to crumble, revealing a darkness no one expected. The search warrant for Jake's house marked a turning point in the investigation. When the police stepped inside, the first impression was one of normalcy. The house was tidy with nothing visibly out of place on the surface. Yet experienced detectives sensed something was off. The air inside felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were hiding secrets. As they moved from room to room, the officers noticed subtle details. A floor that looked freshly mopped, a faint smell of cleaning products, and areas where the dust had been disturbed. It was clear someone had tried hard to erase evidence. The detectives made their way to the basement, a dimly lit space cluttered with tools, old furniture, and boxes. In the corner stood a small chest locked tight. It was unusual enough for Jake to have something so carefully hidden, and even more strange that he never mentioned it. When the lock was forced open, the contents sent a ripple of shock through the team. Inside were several articles of clothing, some stained with a dark substance that at first looked like paint or mud. Forensic experts were called in immediately. The clothes were carefully bagged and sent to the lab for analysis. Meanwhile, the police kept pressing Jake for answers, but he stuck to his story. He said the stains came from paint and dirt accumulated during his side jobs, insisting there was nothing suspicious. However, the lab results told a very different story. The stains contained human blood, confirming what the officers had feared all along. This was no ordinary mess, it was a sign of violence. Alongside the clothing, detectives found another disturbing discovery. Jake's phone contained dozens of deleted messages, some erased just hours before the police arrived. Specialists used advanced recovery software to retrieve them, revealing a series of heated exchanges between Jake and Emily. The texts showed a relationship far more troubled than anyone in town had realized. There were threats, accusations, and desperate pleas for forgiveness. But most chilling were the messages hinting at secret meetings and plans to keep something hidden. Neighbors began to speak up, sharing what they had seen and heard. Several mentioned that Jake's behavior had changed dramatically in recent weeks. Once friendly and approachable, he had become withdrawn and unpredictable. Late at night, some neighbors reported hearing loud noises, crashes, banging, and even what sounded like someone crying or yelling. Yet no one had ever called the police before. Fear and uncertainty had kept them silent. Detectives revisited the timeline of Emily's disappearance, piecing together every detail. The footage from the night she vanished was analyzed frame by frame. What had seemed like a simple ride home suddenly took on a sinister tone. There were gaps in the video coverage, strange shadows, and moments when the truck's headlights flickered on and off in ways that didn't align with the story Jake had told. The investigation expanded beyond the house. Officers combed through nearby woods and empty lots, searching for any clues that might explain where Emily had gone. They interviewed friends, family members, and co-workers, all of whom painted a picture of a woman who had grown anxious and worried in the days before she disappeared. Some believed Emily was planning to end the relationship, while others suggested she had uncovered something about Jake that scared her. Despite the mounting evidence, Jake remained a figure of mystery. His calmness frustrated the police, who saw it as either cold calculation or deep denial. Friends who had once defended him now questioned how well they really knew him. The town's trust was beginning to fracture. As the hours passed, the pressure to find Emily intensified. The community rallied together, organizing searches and sharing updates on social media. Every lead was followed, every tip investigated, but Emily's fate remained unknown. Behind closed doors, Jake's world was unraveling. The neat facade of his life was cracking under the weight of lies and secrets. The locked chest in the basement was just the beginning. What no one knew yet was that the darkest truths were still waiting to be uncovered, and they would change everything. The silence around Jake's house was broken late, Friday night, by noises that unsettled the neighbors, sounds that would soon become crucial pieces of the puzzle. There were crashing noises, sharp thuds, and moments of eerie quiet that felt heavier than the usual stillness of the neighborhood. One neighbor recalled hearing what sounded like desperate shouting, followed by a sudden silence that lingered too long. It was the kind of night that left a knot in the stomach. The kind of night when something terrible happens behind closed doors. When police finally confronted Jake with these witness accounts, Cracks began to form in his carefully crafted story. Under mounting pressure, he confessed to having a serious argument with Emily that night. But what he initially described as a verbal fight took a darker turn as the interrogation went on. Jake admitted that in a moment of uncontrollable anger, he had struck Emily. He claimed it was accidental, a snap of frustration that spiraled out of control. Yet even this partial truth was a shock to everyone who had known the couple. What followed was a horrifying revelation. Instead of calling for help or taking responsibility, Jake panicked. He knew the consequences of his actions would be devastating, and fear clouded his judgment. In those critical moments after the attack, Jake made a series of choices that would haunt him forever. He moved Emily's body, trying to conceal the crime rather than face the truth. Investigators uncovered that Jake had transported her to a remote wooded area outside town. The location was carefully chosen, a place rarely visited where the dense trees and thick undergrowth could hide evidence. Jake had spent the next 48 hours meticulously cleaning his house, wiping down surfaces, removing anything that might link him to Emily's disappearance. But despite his efforts, there were mistakes. Small but crucial errors that would eventually expose him. Detectives found cleaning supplies scattered around the house, bleach and other chemicals used to erase bloodstains and fingerprints. The locked chest in the basement, initially mysterious, contained items that Jake had hidden away in desperation: a pair of gloves, a bloody cloth, and a torn piece of fabric that matched Emily's favorite sweater. Each discovery painted a picture of a man trying to erase his involvement, but only digging himself deeper. The timeline became clearer as police pieced together phone records, surveillance footage, and witness statements. After striking Emily, Jake had spent the entire night and most of the next day cleaning his house, deleting messages from his phone, and trying to create an alibi. He even contacted friends, feigning ignorance and concern, hoping to deflect suspicion. However, the digital trail betrayed him. Deleted messages were recovered, showing frantic attempts to cover up what happened. Some messages suggested Jake had planned the disposal of Emily's body in advance, indicating a terrifying level of premeditation despite his claims of accident. As the truth unraveled, the community's shock deepened. Jake, a man many had trusted and even admired for his quiet kindness, was revealed to be someone capable of unspeakable violence and deception. The carefully maintained image of a stable relationship shattered under the weight of betrayal and horror. The police kept the discovery of Emily's location secret to avoid tipping Jake off. They prepared a search team, hoping to find her and bring closure to the case. But the knowledge that Jake had spent 2 days trying to erase every trace of his crime made the search daunting. Time was slipping away and the hope of finding Emily alive was fading. Behind the scenes, investigators also found troubling evidence of a darker side to Jake's character, past incidents of anger and manipulation that had never come to light. Friends and family began to recall moments they had dismissed or ignored, signs of control and intimidation masked by Jake's outward calm. The 48-hour cover-up was not just about hiding a crime. It was about a man desperately trying to keep his world from collapsing. But no amount of cleaning or lies could stop the inevitable. The search for Emily grew urgent as the police prepared to comb the dense forest on the outskirts of Maplewood. Knowing that every minute mattered, officers and volunteers gathered with determination, ready to uncover the truth that had been buried beneath layers of fear and deception. The woods were thick with tangled branches, fallen leaves, and uneven ground, a challenging place to find anything hidden. Still, they pressed on, scanning every inch with flashlights and metal detectors, hoping to find a sign of Emily. Hours passed with no breakthrough. The sun began to set, casting long shadows that made the forest seem even more mysterious and ominous. The tension among the searchers was palpable. Every sound, whether a snapping twig or rustling leaf, set nerves on edge. Then, just as hope was beginning to wane, A volunteer spotted something unusual near the base of a large oak tree. A small patch of disturbed earth, darker than the surrounding soil. Digging carefully, they uncovered something that stopped everyone in their tracks. Emily's lifeless body, partially buried and hidden beneath a layer of leaves and dirt. The discovery shattered the fragile calm of the search party. Emergency responders arrived quickly, confirming the tragic reality. Emily had been dead for days, the victim of blunt force trauma to the head. The brutality of her death stunned the community and sent shockwaves throughout the town. People who had once admired the couple struggled to reconcile this horrific outcome with the lives they thought they knew. The autopsy report revealed chilling details. The blow to Emily's head had been powerful enough to cause immediate unconsciousness, and she likely died shortly after the attack. There were no signs of defensive wounds, suggesting she had little time to react. The forensic examination also found traces of dirt and leaves under her nails, evidence she may have tried to resist or claw her way free. As the grim news spread, the investigation shifted from a missing person case to a full homicide. The police intensified their efforts to build a strong case against Jake. His attempts to cover up the crime, once hidden behind neat lies and clean surfaces, were now laid bare for all to see. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was found on Jake's digital devices. Despite his efforts to erase incriminating material, forensic experts recovered deleted videos and photos showing Jake preparing for the aftermath of the crime. These images depicted him wearing gloves, gathering cleaning supplies, and carefully planning how to dispose of evidence. The chilling level of premeditation revealed a cold, calculated side to the crime that shocked even seasoned investigators. The community struggled to understand how a man they thought they knew could commit such a horrific act and then spend days trying to erase every trace. Questions swirled about the signs they might have missed. The quiet anger, the sudden changes in behavior, the hidden resentments. Friends and family felt a mixture of grief, betrayal, and guilt for not recognizing the warning signs earlier. The police also discovered that Jake had hidden Emily's personal belongings in various locations, hoping to keep them from being found. Items like her purse, jewelry, and phone accessories were recovered, further proving his intent to erase her existence from his life. These discoveries helped piece together the timeline and gave prosecutors powerful evidence of Jake's deliberate cover-up. Despite the overwhelming proof, Jake maintained a stoic silence during the investigation. His calm demeanor no longer appeared strange but chilling, an unsettling mask that hinted at the depth of his detachment from the crime he had committed. As the search and investigation continued, more disturbing details emerged about Jake's past. Friends revealed that he had a history of controlling behavior and emotional manipulation, traits that had been hidden behind a facade of normalcy. These revelations helped explain the tragic path that led to Emily's death and cast a shadow over the seemingly ordinary life they had shared. The 48-hour cover-up was now fully exposed, not just as a desperate attempt to avoid responsibility, but as a deliberate, chilling plan to hide the truth. The question that haunted everyone was no longer if Jake was guilty, but how he could live with the weight of what he had done. The case moved quickly toward prosecution, with investigators confident that justice for Emily was within reach. But for the town of Maplewood, the scars left by this tragedy would linger long after the courtroom drama ended. The courtroom was filled with a heavy silence as the trial of Jake Mitchell began. The community had gathered, many still struggling to come to terms with the horrific crime that had shattered their sense of safety. Emily Dawson's story was told in painstaking detail, from the last moments she was seen alive to the brutal attack and the desperate 48-hour cover-up that followed. The evidence was overwhelming. Blood-stained clothes, deleted messages, videos showing Jake's calculated efforts to hide his crime, and the testimony of neighbors who had heard the chilling noises that fateful night. The prosecution painted a picture of a man consumed by jealousy and fear, willing to destroy the life of the woman he claimed to love in order to protect his own. Jake's calm demeanor, once puzzling, was now seen as cold and remorseless. The jury listened as forensic experts described the violent attack, the brutal blow that ended Emily's life, and the painstaking attempts to erase every trace of what had happened. Yet, as the trial unfolded, a surprising twist emerged, one that cast new light on the tragedy. Text messages recovered from Emily's phone revealed that she had discovered disturbing secrets about Jake weeks before her death. These messages showed Emily's growing fear and determination to leave the relationship. She had planned to break free, but those plans were tragically cut short. The defense tried to argue that Jake's actions were the result of a momentary lapse, an accident born of emotional turmoil. But the evidence of premeditation was too strong. The jury saw the cold planning behind the cover-up, the deleted texts, the cleaning supplies, the hidden belongings, and understood that this was no impulsive act but a calculated attempt to avoid justice. When the verdict was announced, Jake Mitchell was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The decision brought a sense of closure to many, but it did little to heal the wounds left by the crime. In the weeks following the trial, more revelations came to light. Friends and family shared stories of Jake's controlling behavior, patterns of emotional abuse that had been hidden beneath a quiet exterior. Emily's courage in seeking to escape a dangerous relationship was remembered and honored, shining a light on the often hidden realities of domestic violence. The community of Maplewood was left to grapple with the aftermath. The tragedy sparked conversations about warning signs and the importance of speaking out. Support groups were formed, and efforts to educate people about abusive relationships gained momentum. Emily's memory became a symbol of strength and resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest moments there is hope for change. Despite the justice served in court, questions remained. How had someone so many trusted been capable of such horror? How many signs had been missed? The answers were complex and painful, but they inspired a commitment to vigilance and compassion. Jake Mitchell's life behind bars was marked by silence and regret. He was isolated from the world he once inhabited, left to live with the consequences of his actions. The 48-hour cover-up that once seemed like a desperate attempt to hide a terrible mistake had instead sealed his fate. For Emily's family, the pain of loss was profound, but they found some comfort in knowing that justice had been done. They spoke openly about their daughter's life, her dreams, and the vibrant person she had been before tragedy struck. Their story became a call to action, a plea to recognize and confront the dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most ordinary lives. In the end, the case of Jake Mitchell and Emily Dawson served as a stark reminder. Truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how deeply it is buried. The horrifying 48-hour cover-up was not just a desperate act. It was the final chapter in a story of love turned deadly, secrets kept, and justice finally served.